In the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night, in the heart of the night, this world will burn bright. We will set it alight. In the heart of the night. Hello everyone, I am Anthropomantic Fiend, and I do horror-related things on the internet. So today I have finally gotten back to Bela Lugosi, at least one more time. There's probably more of him in this box set that I've been going through somewhere, but today we're looking at one of his earliest horror roles, shortly after Dracula, which is in the movie White Zombie from 1932, just 1 year after Dracula. So this movie follows this couple who, for whatever reason, I think they're staying with either a scientist of some kind or they're missionaries of some kind, but they've gone to Haiti and they are going to be married there. Yeah, they're meeting a friend who lives there who's going to be the best man at the wedding. And I don't totally remember why they're having a wedding there, but you know, it's pretty convenient for the plot. This guy, I think his name's Beaumont, who is still in love with this guy's fiancée and wants to have her for his own, and so he goes to murder Legendre, who is I forget what you call him, but he's basically a, voodoo master of some kind, played by Lugosi, and talks to him about wanting to basically steal her away and convince her to be his wife via voodoo and murder. Yes, Lugosi's name is literally Murder in this movie. Tells him that the only way to do that is to make her into a zombie. So that's what he's intending to do. And of course, everything goes horribly, horribly wrong. The zombies in this movie are pre-Romero's ghouls that would become known as zombies. These are traditional Haitian voodoo zombies. They are not technically living dead. They are people who have been drugged so that they go into this paralyzed death-like state. Then once they're in their graves, revived by someone by taking them out and giving them some other kind of drug that wakes them up, but then also keeps their active mind dormant so they have no will of their own. I don't know how accurate that is to actual Haitian traditions. There's probably some overgeneralizing in the movie and some extra over-the-top magical elements added just for horror's sake. I know that it keeps the basic gist of what the thing was in Haitian tradition, and I don't know. I kind of hesitate to call it voodoo because I really haven't done that much research into this stuff. I love studying different religions, mythologies, practices, traditions, superstitions, etc., etc., etc. Voodoo and other sort of Haitian traditions I haven't looked into as much as I have some other things. I really don't know what I'm talking about, so I don't know if the filmmakers have any idea what they're talking about either. If you know more about this stuff than me, let me know how accurate the movie is to this stuff, but I at least give it props for really being the first movie to ever bring zombies as a concept at all into the world of horror and the world of film, because before that, I don't think zombie was even a term. There were living dead, but there weren't zombies. And I don't know how the term zombie eventually got applied to the living dead characters that inspired by the vampires in I Am Legend in The Last Man on Earth, which I just reviewed. I don't know how the term zombie got applied to the ghouls that Romero created, but this, I think, could be considered the first zombie movie, although it's zombies in a completely different sense. That element is cool. The music in this is not unlike in Dracula and Frankenstein, almost completely absent. It's a little bit different in that it does have incidental music in some of the more intense scenes where some horrible thing is about to happen, but other than that, it's fairly dead silent. And then you'll have sort of other scenes that include music that is in the background because it's actually there. The opening shot of the movie, the opening credits, are these native Haitians burying someone in the ground in the middle of the road, and they're singing as they do that, and it's really cool. There's sort of this, it's either, again, I have no idea what I'm talking about. It's either the filmmakers just being like, oh, this is what it must be like, or it's actually somewhat close to what traditional Haitian music is like. Again, no idea what I'm talking about, need to research this, but that music I really liked. It was really cool the way it was incorporated into the movie. There's another scene later on where you just have these voices sort of humming in harmony with each other in the background of another scene, and it just adds this really cool atmosphere to it that I liked. So I liked that music. The other incidental music is very much closer to what you'd get in a horror movie around this time. It's very, just sort of feels like dark classical music, I guess. I enjoyed all the music in this. Again, not much that I can pick out as any kind of distinct, definable theme that I can remember, although the music from the opening credits will actually get stuck in my head sometimes, because I think it's really cool. So, music is good. The acting in this movie is enjoyable. What can I say about Lugosi at this point that I haven't said already? He's fantastic. You can sort of tell this is one of his earlier roles shortly after Dracula, because he still has this very odd phrasing to his words, which is what sort of got him the role as Dracula in some ways, because he felt sort of eerie and odd in the way he phrased his words, and that's also present in this movie. As his career progresses, you can kind of tell that his words and his sentences feel more fluid in some ways, but this has this strange sort of phrasing and emphasis on different words, because Lugosi, while he could speak English, it was never his first language, and he always sort of thought in Hungarian, and he learned his lines for Dracula, and I'm assuming for this movie, phonetically, which is why there's sort of this interesting phrasing to it. So again, another just sort of little rambling moment there, but Lugosi is awesome. He's wonderfully sinister in this movie. No other real standout performances in this. All of them are just kind of standard vintage horror movie character tropes, but they're played well, and I didn't have a problem with any of them. Some of the native Haitian characters might have been stereotyped a little bit, or maybe a lot. Again, I don't know what I'm talking about. I need to research this. I thought all the acting was good, and I thought all the characters were good. Visually, regarding sets and costumes and stuff, this movie is beautiful. Print quality is not good, and sound quality is god-awful, but the visuals in this movie are great. There's just, I'm sure this was a lower budget movie, so there's a lot of very bleak, open spaces with not a lot of people in them, and it just lots of heavy shadows and things, and it creates this cool atmosphere that creates the feeling of a world that's probably bigger than what they actually had access to. The movie combines Haitian tradition with like Western Gothic horror that you would have seen from the likes of Dracula a year prior. The movie actually reuses sets from Dracula. It reuses the castle set in a way that is beautiful. It's been reconfigured so it feels like a different setting, and there's a different exterior with a different castle look, and this huge cliffside with these waves. And it's beautiful, and there's a gorgeous cemetery set and some standard but nice looking sort of house interiors that you would see in a 30s movie. There's another really cool scene where they create this feeling of a bar without really having more than one person in the scene. It's just this one guy sitting in the bar, and there's music and talking in the background, and you just see the silhouettes of people sitting at tables and talking and dancing behind him, just cast on the wall. It creates this cool atmosphere as well as sort of suggesting the idea of a bigger room without showing it, which I thought was cool. Another one of the really cool sets is this plantation that's run by Murder Legendre, Lugosi's character, that's completely run by zombies. So they're just sort of throwing their crop into this grinding machine as these zombies just sort of mindlessly walk in circles, cranking it. One of the creepiest parts there, I mean, it didn't creep me out or anything, but I didn't expect it to, but it was still sort of yikes, was when there were all of these zombies lined up to throw what they had harvested into the machine, and one of them falls in, and there's no screams or noise or anything. You just hear him being grinded up as they just continue walking, which I thought was cool. All the sets are gorgeous and pretty well filmed, and this movie is extremely stylish with what it does with sort of in-camera and effects and stuff. It uses a lot of wipes and things to add to the movie's atmosphere, and it likes to superimpose images over things. Some of those really cool effects are spoilers, so I'll get to that in a minute, but they give Lugosi this similar hypnotic thing that he'll do to what he does in Dracula, where he'll do this little move with his hands that's sort of something like this, and then he'll just stare dead-eyed straight ahead. They actually perfected the glowing eyes thing that they tried to do in Dracula in this movie, where they would cut out little holes in cardboard to try to line up with Lugosi's eyes and then shine lights through it so it would illuminate his eyes. But in Dracula, you can tell that they never get it quite right because the lights are just ever so slightly off. And in this movie, we get a shot near the end where Lugosi's doing his hypnotic thing and the eyes are like perfectly lit up. And I don't actually remember how they did that, but it was really well done. And I've always sort of wondered how the cardboard cutout lights into eyes thing was supposed to actually work without, blinding you, because if you did something like that, I would basically expect my eyes to just turn into sunspots. So, I don't know. I'll have to look into that. Effects were great, and yeah, there's a lot of shots where Lugosi's eyes are superimposed over stuff and, move around. Like, when we're first introduced to murder in the movie, we haven't even seen Lugosi's face yet. He's just sitting by the roadside, but we see his eyes just in the frame moving away, just superimposed over the shot over to where Lugosi's standing and then fading out. So lots of cool camera wipes and things being superimposed over things, and it's just very visually awesome. And the story, as I mentioned, was pretty cool, and the characters are entertaining. I actually didn't go over what some of the other interesting characters are like, so I'll go over that, starting with Lugosi's zombies, because he has this little crew of zombies, as I mentioned, and there's just a few that get singled out and help him carry out his horrible deeds in the movie. And one of them is his former voodoo master. I don't remember what all of them are, but all of them are people who have wronged him in some way, and one of them was gonna be the executioner that executed him, and there's just this really cool background to all of them that I enjoyed. And the executioner in particular has this look on his face that looks like what I would imagine he looked like right when he died. It's just this look of pain and fear, and he just walks around with his face like that permanently, and it's creepy and it's cool. The zombies were cool, and then there's another character who's like this professor guy who's helping the main hero character, and he is hilarious because there is a scene where they're discussing the horrible goings on, and he's super distraught, and he's trying to explain zombies to this guy because he's never heard of them, and he's freaking out. He'll just keep interrupting and saying, "Excuse me, have you got a match?" And he'll just say this several times because he needs to light his pipe before he can go on, and that was just a touch that I found amusing. So that's the characters, and the story is a story of love, obsession, and hypnotism, and murder and death, and it's all pretty well done. I could kind of predict all of the beats of the story before they happened, but overall it was really good. And yeah, don't really have any problems with the story in any way. Oh, there was one other thing I wanted to mention before I give my consensus on this and move on to the spoilers, which is that Lugosi's character has a vulture. And oh my god, is it loud. The first time it starts making noise, I thought it was another character screaming, because it just completely overpowers everything, and I did not like it. I know it's supposed to be creepy and stuff, but it's just, it's grating and I don't like it. But the vulture is like the only bad part of the movie for me. There's other parts that are kind of but overall, it's a good movie and it's a really important part of horror history, so I recommend that you watch it, especially for the visuals, because visually this movie is spectacular. That is my spoiler-free section of my review of White Zombie. Here are the spoilers. So I mentioned superimposed shots and cool wipes and dissolves and things, and one of the first really cool ones that we get besides Murder's eyes at the very beginning of the movie is after Beaumont has poisoned the girl. I think her name's Madeline, don't remember for sure, but has slipped her the zombie drug via a flower where she's inhaled it, and she is doing some kind of fun party tradition thing where she's looking into her wine glass and predicting the future, and she's looking in and she's like, oh, I see lots of happiness and love for everyone, but then she looks in again and she just gets this stare in her eyes and she goes, I see death, and falls down, and the zombie drug has taken effect. When she looks into the goblet right before that, we see a shot of Lugosi as Murder staring up at her from the glass, and it was really cool there. And then after she dies in the bar with all the shadow people that I mentioned, the guy is sitting there with his head down on the table, and he's drunk and depressed because his wife has just apparently died, and he keeps seeing her in the room calling out to him, and he keeps trying to reach for her, and she's not there. They've superimposed her into the thing, and she's still in her wedding dress, and she's very ghostly, and obviously none of the effects in this movie really are, like, impressive from a realism perspective today, but it lends the movie this really cool style and atmosphere, and it looks really good, so I liked that. At the very end of the movie, there's another scene where they've gone out to this atmospheric castle setting, which is where Beaumont and Murder have taken, I believe, Madeline, and Madeline's husband is sitting there just thinking about her, and it keeps doing these wipes where it'll do a split screen thing between him sitting on the rocks in front of the castle and her just sort of standing dead-eyed on the balcony of the castle. And there's one shot in particular where there's just a wipe that like opens up the screen like curtains from the shot of him sitting there to her on the balcony, and it was really cool. All of that is great. And then the climax of the movie is fun, because Beaumont, being a total idiot, decides to drink a toast with Murder, and doesn't even stop to think that he might have put the zombie drug in the wine. And of course he has, and of course he starts turning into a zombie. And then Murder has other plans for Madeline, because he's a typical horror movie villain, and that's what he does. And then the professor and Madeline's husband break in, and they have a showdown with the zombies that essentially consists of the zombies cornering the guy on the edge of the cliff, and then him sort of getting on the ground and ducking out, and them, basically left on walking forward mode. They all just sort of fall off the cliff. And then shortly after that, Beaumont, who's almost a zombie at this point, throws Lugosi off of a cliff, and we see his body fall into the water and just him screaming, and then he throws himself off of the cliff. I thought it was kind of funny, but it was also epic, all things considered. And then the husband and wife get back together, and I'm like, oh boy, just typical happily ever after scene, and they're about to kiss, and then the professor thumps the guy on the back and just goes, "Excuse me, have you got a match?" That took me by surprise, and I was just expecting, yeah, just get the kiss over with. And then he comes in with the final joke, and I was like, yes! Because I found just sort of his insistence for a match so he can smoke at the most inopportune times. I thought that was really funny. Again, this movie's a classic. It obviously inspired zombie movies to come, and it inspired the title of Rob Zombie's first band, White Zombie, who are fantastic. Classic horror movie. Not a perfect movie, but a good one and visually fantastic, so I highly recommend that you all check it out. That's my review of White Zombie. Thank you for watching my video, and hopefully I will see you in another one. Bye.